What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Set, Bet, Spike right here on Game Plus Network, presented by FTN Bets. Chris Meaney and the Eric Young here with you for the next 45 minutes or so. And we have switched gears from the NFC to the AFC. We did every single NFC division. We previewed them all the teams in the NFC. If you want to go back, you can watch them on our FTN Network YouTube page. If you're hanging out with us live, we appreciate you guys. Smash the like button. Any comments, any questions, you can leave them there. And if we don't get to them on this show, I will circle back a little bit later on and address those questions if you leave them in the YouTube comment section. So we are switching gears from the NFC to the AFC. We are going to lead here with the AFC East and the Buffalo Bills in this division, the Super Bowl favorites, heavy favorites to win this division, and really just, Eric, they're awesome. We know that. They're great. Yep. This core is really good. They had that heartbreaking loss last year to the Chiefs in overtime, which was just a fantastic football game. But this conference, as we turn our attention to the AFC, it is loaded, man. It's not going to be easy for anybody, including the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some surprises. I think the Buffalo Bills, obviously are the favorite. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I grew up, that was my team as a kid. I had a choice between Detroit or Buffalo. Those were the two teams that I got on TV as a Canadian. Love Thurman Thomas. Yeah. Love Kelly. Love Andre Rison. They broke my heart. I cried 3 Super Bowls in a row and they lost them. And I stopped watching football. And in a weird turn of events, I ended up picking a new team when I came back to football, and I picked the Tennessee Titans. And that was years and years and years before I moved here. So I don't know, fate or whatever you want to call it. That's what happened. I ended up living here, and that was the team I was already following. But yeah, this is a super interesting division. I think the Patriots are going to be a very, very good team. Mac Jones was a rookie last year. I think some people can kind of forget that, right? He wasn't supposed to be as good as he was. I think he was way better than everyone thought he was going to be, coaching staff included. And I think he's going to take another step. I think Devontae Parker is a really good pickup for them. Big body, good down the field guy, and good red zone guy. They still have Hunter Henry. And a person you've been hearing a ton of drum beats from training camp too as well is Jonnu Smith. But we'll talk about the Buffalo Bills to start. I think the best team. I'm getting as much Josh Allen as I can. Everyone's like, oh, he runs the ball and he could get hurt. Well, you could say that about every single player in the NFL. Every single player can get hurt on every single snap. I do not consider that when I'm picking players. He's a big dude. He's ran as a quarterback his entire life and his entire career. And I want him on every one of my teams if possible.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. He's been the quarterback one each of the past 2 seasons. He is going as the first quarterback off the board. Yeah, the Bills are favored to win this division. They're 6-1 to win the Super Bowl, so they have the shortest odds. You see the win total 11.5 to win the AFC East. They're -180. A lot has changed actually since we've made these boards. DraftKings is showing -230 for AFC division winners. The only team, I guess, that's favored more than the Bills to win their own division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at -250. But to win the conference 4-1, to win the Super Bowl 7-1, and DraftKings got 6-1, you can get some 7-1s. Use the prop shop parlay calculator at all times to get the best possible odds. It's your friend. It's linked inside the description of this video. It saves you a lot of time. And if you are one that likes to make future bets, why wouldn't you use the prop shop? It's like Google. You just type in the Bills and away you go. You see all the best odds. You see all the odds from all the books. But I do believe that this is their division to lose. I think the Jets are improved. I think the Dolphins are improved. And New England is good on both sides of the football. We'll get into them a little bit deeper. But yeah, the Buffalo Bills, man, they're ready, right? They don't have a lot of holes in this squad. Defensively, they were one of the best, if not the best, last year. Now, some of the numbers are a little skewed. Their schedule was super soft last year. It really was. When they played teams that were really good, they struggled at times, right? KC, your Titans. It's amazing. You went from Buffalo, they broke your heart a bunch, and you went to Tennessee. Why didn't you just throw the towel in on the Leafs after they broke your heart all the time? Like, just forget about them, man. Let's go full-time Preds.
Sometimes when you're dedicated for something for so long, Chris, you just got to stick with it.
Fair enough.
I was so upset. I just kind of stopped watching football for a couple of years. I was young. I wasn't a psychopath like I am now. I wasn't watching every single game and every single snap. But Buffalo Bills was definitely my team. And I couldn't take the mental torture anymore. As an adult, look at me. I'm obviously used to letdown. I'm used to mental anguish. I'm callous to it at this point. I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a 5'11" chubby kid with small feet from Florence, Ontario. I'm used to disappointment, buddy.
The Bills, according to Football Outsiders, total DVOA offense number 10, a pass they were number 13, and rush they were number 9, and really not getting a lot from any running back, really. We'll get into it in a little bit, but Zach Moss was a huge disappointment. It looks like a bust at this point of his career, despite looking good in the preseason and week 1 of the preseason over the weekend. They also bring in James Cook, so we'll touch on the weapons here in a little bit, but according to Football Outsiders, number 1 in total DVOA defense. They were number 1 against the pass. They were number 11 against the run. That, I suppose, is their weakness. If I'm looking at this Bills team and I'm trying to see the weakness, it is stopping the run. We've seen teams run all over them before. The Colts went into Buffalo, I believe, and crushed them, led by Jonathan Taylor. We've seen your Titans run all over them as well. Derrick Henry, a couple of years before, I think we saw, this is a long time ago, but they had 2 games. I believe one was Lev Bell, and the other one I think was a combination of Miami backs where they had over 200 rushing yards against them. We saw the win game in Buffalo against New England where Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels let Mac Jones throw the ball like 3 times, and Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson ran all over them. So if there is a weakness on the squad, it is stopping the run, but even still number 11 in rush DVOA. Where I question the secondary, and I don't question it, like it's really good. I think there are better secondaries in the NFL. Maybe we're splitting hairs a little bit, but they did face some pretty weak competition last year. And when they went up against those weak teams, they certainly dominated. Like, I don't want to look into it too much, EY, but this was last year's schedule. So week 1, Steelers, they actually lost that game. But then Miami 35-0, Washington 43-21. So they went up against Washington. I think maybe Allen might have been the quarterback at that point. Not Josh. Was it Allen? It doesn't matter. The Washington quarterbacks have had like 17 since 2017. They've had so many different quarterbacks. Yeah, maybe Kyle. I'm thinking of Kyle Allen. And then, they also had Ryan Fitzpatrick for a minute. And they had Heineke for a minute. I like moving guys last year. But Miami, Tua, they've just dominated Miami, Josh Allen in particular. Washington, Houston. Then they had the matchup against KC where they ended up beating the Chiefs in Kansas City 38-20. They lost to your Titans. Then they had Miami. They went into Jacksonville, surprisingly lost that game 9-6. Beat up on a Jets team, got crushed against the Colts at home 41-15. Beat up on the Saints, really had nothing to offer. Week 12, the quarterback position 31-6. Lost in that win bowl game 14-10 against New England. Lost to Tampa, and then beat up on some weaker opponents towards the end of the season. Carolina had the revenge against the Pats, the Falcons, and the Jets. They played a lot of weak teams last year, and their schedule this year, EY, is much tougher. And like we said, the division is a little bit more improved. They open up, actually, the entire NFL season gets underway. Week 1 at LA, Super Bowl champs against the Bills should be highly entertaining. So Los Angeles to start, then back home against Tennessee, a team that they've struggled against over the past couple of years. Miami at Baltimore, at home against Pittsburgh. They should be able to handle, get revenge from the loss last year. At Kansas City won't be easy. At home against Green Bay, easy one against the Jets, of course, in the division. Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit. Those are probably all W's for them. New England, they wrap up pretty easily against the Jets, Miami, Chicago. And then at Cincinnati will be a tough one, and then New England. So the schedule is a little bit easier, but I can't see a scenario where they don't get 12 wins. Like that board at 11.5. I mean, we could roll through the schedule. You figure they beat the Jets twice. They beat Miami twice, at least get the split against New England. A W against Detroit, a W against Cleveland, a W against Minnesota, a W against Chicago, probably a W against Pittsburgh. This is like a double-digit win team. And to win the conference at 4-1, that's a pretty decent bet, despite that conference being really good.
Yeah, I mean, as far as fantasy and betting, I mean, it's not something you have to concern yourself about whether Buffalo is going to win games or not. For me, it's another reason like you're saying about the schedule. I don't like to look at the schedule because I don't think there's a single person on earth, no matter how much you know about football, that can predict what teams, especially defenses, are going to be good. You know, we all thought Washington was going to be unreal last year. They're one of the worst in the league. Like, predicting it at this point is absolutely a fool's errand, coming from the guy that predicts goal scoring in hockey. So I don't do it. But judging by it, you know, the teams we saw last year and what we think teams are going to do, you're 100% right. This is a way more difficult schedule. And that is another reason why Josh Allen is a guy that I want on my team. He makes plays. He you know what I mean? He will take control. He will run. He will sacrifice himself. He will make throws that he probably shouldn't. He will try to force the ball in. He's a winner. And I want a quarterback that has a tough schedule because they're forcing him to make plays. And he can do it both with his feet and with his arm. So to me, it just makes him as an even more value, you know, when you're looking at his schedule. If you're a person that is, you know, splitting hairs between him and somebody else, I feel that the strength of schedule, the fact that they're going to play in difficult games with teams that are going to score. We saw last year, they barely ran the ball. They throw it all the time. Now they brought in James Cook. And I think that is you're just showing your hand even more. You're saying we're going to continue to throw the ball. And they're going to throw it a lot. It wouldn't surprise me at the end of the year they have the most passes for any team in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is loaded. They should finish as a top 5 offense. And I'm not trashing on the Bills defense, guys. Bills Mafia can be pretty intense. I love it. I've been to a Bills game. I'm with you. You guys want to jump on tables, by all means. I'll sit there and record and drink beers with you. And maybe I'll jump on a table as well. But when I was there on the tailgate, the weather was so bad. It just couldn't even really stay outside. It was like sideways wind and rain. The Eagles ended up winning that game. It was a rare loss at home from Josh Allen and the company. But this team is loaded. They allowed the fewest fantasy points last year to quarterbacks. They allowed the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers last year. They'll be inside the top 5 again, but I just wanted to hammer home like the schedule, right? It was a pretty soft schedule for them. They got some tougher competition, true test. So these are their weapons. Josh Allen, quarterback 1. I do have him as quarterback 1. He's going as pick 25 on average over the past couple of months. Devin Singletary, RB 29. You mentioned Cook. They bring in James Cook. This is exactly what they needed. Like, if there's one thing that the Bills have been lacking offensively, is like a pass catching running back from, you can go back to LaShawn McCoy, who's like a bell cow, had some really nice seasons with the Buffalo Bills, but Singletary's had some catches out of the backfield here and there, but not much. Zach Moss, not really anything at all. It looked like they had acquired JD McKissick, who's like 5th in the NFL in catches since 2019. And that didn't work out. And then they spent a second round pick. A second round pick should be very telling for you guys. What the Bills wanted in the offseason was a pass-catching running back. Tried to get McKissick, couldn't. Spent that second-round pick on brother of Dalvin Cook, James Cook, RB 36. Steep price to pay, but I like what he's going to be able to bring to the table. Stephon Diggs is going in the first round, roughly, as wide receiver 5. Everybody wants a piece of Gabriel Davis, wide receiver 28. It is a steep price to pay. We can dive into him in a little bit. Jamison Crowder, wide receiver 66, who they bring over from the Jets. Isaiah McKenzie's got a lot of buzz here over the past couple of months. Wide receiver 79, going even higher than that in best ball formats. This is from NFFC. And then Dawson Knox, who had a hell of a season last year, tight end 10. It is Josh Allen's Fortnite buddy there. The two are not only tearing it up on the field, but they're tearing it up in the digital video game world as well. I know you like Allen. I'm with you. Not going to hate on you wanting as much Josh Allen as you can. I probably won't have too many shares of him. I do have him in a keeper league. I can keep him like in the 10th round this year. Just like he broke out a couple years ago, and you were all over it. I was all over it. Jake Seeley, who's a friend of the show, was all over it as well when we were doing some stuff together at The Athletic. When you and I were doing stuff together at The Athletic, 4 sack lines, I was doing some stuff with Jake Seeley as well, and we had Josh Allen pegged as a breakout candidate. We really saw a massive jump forward in like year 2 to 3. Brian Dable is no longer on the squad anymore. I think I call him Ken Dorsey, offensive coordinator. Maybe there's a bit of a step back with some of the play calling, but Allen is that good. The reason I probably won't have much of him, EY, is just, it's just a little rich for me. And, at the end of the second, I kind of like to target running backs and wide receivers, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Allen's, as we said, quarterback 1 each of the past 2 seasons. He's amazing. He's got wicked pieces around him. Offensive line is good. You're adding Cook. who can catch a 5-yard screen pass and take it to the house. It's an added element. That's why this offense could actually take another step forward to add a guy like James Cook, who's explosive through the air. Super flex, he's going to be pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, and he should be because you got to start 2 quarterbacks there. So he's going to go early, and it's certainly warranted. Outside of Josh Allen, if we bring up that board again, Diggs is a high pick as well, and you can say him if you want. But who else on this list here is somebody that you want or maybe you don't want?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is hoping and thinking that Gabriel Davis is going to be the guy. I don't know if I'm fully convinced. I think, we saw the one game, what he did in the playoffs and but I mean, was pretty inconsistent other than that. Stephon Diggs is going to be the number one. There's 2 ways of looking at that. It depends on if you're a Gabe Davis guy or not. You could look at it like, teams have got to think about Stephon Diggs first. He's the best player on the team. He's the most dynamic weapon for the Bills. They have to think about him first. They have to game plan for him. Almost every play he's going to be bracketed or double covered, and that's going to open it up for these other players. You said it. We've been hearing the drum beats about Isaiah Mckenzie all the way from OTAs, all the way now to preseason and training camp. I think a lot of people before, the season was really underway was like, oh, Jamison Crowder, he's going to be Cole Beasley all over again. He's going to catch a ton of balls. I think Isaiah McKenzie's going to have a lot to say about that. And it wouldn't be surprised me if we see very, very little of Jamison Crowder. I like the tight end, Dustin Knox. I've liked him since coming into the league. You could do way worse than him. And another person I have a really good gut feeling about is Devin Singletary. I mean, I think it was turbulent, like you said with Zach Moss. We thought, I think everybody in the fantasy world, me included, thought Zach Moss was going to take the starter's role away from Devin Singletary, and it looked that way. Then he got banged up, and then Singletary stepped back in, and it was basically his job for the rest of the year. Up and down performances for sure, but he's
more better than worse. I think he was pretty decent towards the end of the season.
Towards the end of the season I feel like when they really started to trust him. He had a couple bad fumbles and missed assignments at the start of the year, and that's when he got sent to the bench, and it was Zach Moss's thing. And he got back in the good graces with the coaching staff, with the players. Watching this guy run, he's motivated. He's not a big guy, but he runs hard. He's got, he's low. He's got good leverage. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside. He's got decent speed. He can catch the ball. It's not what he does. He's not a James Cook, but he can do it as well. I think it's going to be his position. I think James Cook will be a third down guy. Will catch a ton of balls, but I think, the goal line stuff opportunities and most of the running responsibilities, which I think will be very, very little. Look, I mean, I think Devin Singletary will go off the board before I get him. I do like him as a player, but I just think they're just not going to run the ball. If they showed us anything last year, they're not interested in it. And by what they did in the draft, they may be even less interested in running the ball this season.
Yeah, because Cook is really good, but he doesn't seem like a guy that's, if anything happened to Singletary, maybe he gets into like 10 or 12 carries a game. But what we've seen with this Bills team is it's pedal to the metal, and they like to throw the rock, right? They really like to throw the football. There was a game, I think, was it last year or the year before? I think it would have been in the playoffs against the Colts, where they didn't have a rushing attempt in the first half of a playoff game. Which is not one.
Everything you know about football is counterintuitive. The Buffalo Bills are an amazing team. This is the new NFL. For how many years did we hear the 2 things that dictate a championship football team is being able to run the ball and be able to stop the run? They can't do either, and they choose not to do either. And they're probably going to win the division, and it would surprise nobody if they played for the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl this year.
Right. I would like to see them be a little bit more balanced from a real life standpoint. I think if they are going to make some noise in the playoffs, they can't just be that one dimensional. You can't. You got to be able to sprinkle in a couple runs, whether it's Singletary or having Cook out there to kind of, respect, the screen game or anything like that. I think they need to have a little bit more rushing in their game, but this is a team that likes to throw the rock, and Josh Allen is, of course, really good. We've talked about that at length. I like a lot of what you said, dude. Singletary, I think, is a decent back, but what you said, I agree with, is that he'll probably be gone by the time I'm really ready to pull the trigger on him. And James Cook is going a little bit too early for me. Like you can make the case for anybody in best ball. This is a stack that's going to be a good one. You can get Diggs at the end of the first, and then you get Josh Allen by the time it comes back. If you miss out on Davis, maybe you can get a piece of Knox or Mckenzie, but it's just a little bit too rich for me. Give you an example over the last 2 weeks. NFFC RB 36. Ramondre Stevenson is RB 34. Kenneth Walker 35. Cordell Patterson 37. Melvin Gordon 38. Damian Pierce 39. I would rather have Pierce. I'm probably looking at a wide receiver in around pick 100 as opposed to really any of those guys. Like, I don't mind Stevenson and Walker, but there's some timeshares. I like Walker actually quite a bit in terms of just like overtaking Penny, but I think I'd rather Pierce is a guy who should have more touches. Obviously, the offense in Houston is not going to be as nice, but he's going to get first and second down reps. He's going to get some goal line stuff there, where Cook is maybe just a guy that touches the ball, I don't know, man, 5 to 12 times on average, like in around maybe 10 times per game. I don't think that's best case, but it's probably really not going to be a guy that gets a lot of carries, right? He's going to be involved if you're in a PPR league, maybe as like your fourth back. But at this point, RB 36, you're drafting him as your third back. Like, it's just, I just don't think he's going to return value. I love the player. I love the addition, exactly what the Bills need, but I'm just not sure. Gabe Davis, I am in on. It's expensive, but I like it. And it has nothing to do with the 4-touchdown game. In fact, I wish he didn't get 4 touchdowns in that game against Kansas City, because I tried to acquire him everywhere in dynasty leagues. I know that he is this expensive because of that 4-touchdown game. It really does have a lot to do with it. If he didn't have 4 touchdowns in that game, maybe we're looking at him as wide receiver 35, wide receiver 37. But the fact that he had 5 touchdowns in 2 postseason games, has a lot to do with this. But this time last year, EY, when I gave bold predictions, Gabe Davis was a top 15 wide receiver for me. I'm ready to take the L. I was completely wrong on him. But in his rookie season, he had 4 touchdowns in his final 5 games. I noticed he was starting to be involved in the red zone, and he built the trust. Like, there was certainly a connection there towards the end of the season in his rookie year with him and Josh Allen. And then they got Manuel Sanders, who was on the field and in the way, even though he didn't do anything. And you mentioned Cole Beasley. There just wasn't an opportunity for Davis to take that next step. But he finished strong again. 4 touchdowns in his final 5 regular season games. So 4 and 6 to wrap up rookie, 4 and 5 to wrap up sophomore year, 5 and 2 playoff games. Towards the end of the season, the snap counts were there. Not as much as Diggs, but second on the team. He actually had more end zone targets in the final couple weeks of the season than Diggs as well. He's good. And he does have Josh Allen's trust, so I don't mind that price. But to wrap up here, Isaiah Mckenzie, man, it's very telling.
He's the
in
value.
The preseason, he's the value. In the preseason, the first preseason game, and I know it's just preseason, they didn't even play Isaiah Mckenzie. They played Crowder, and Crowder's been dealing with injuries. He's the veteran. I think he probably has the benefit of the doubt to be the week 1 starter in the slot, but they like Mckenzie. They can do a lot of different things with him. He's had a great camp. He's the guy to own. He is the guy to own.
The fact that he didn't play,
it's
proof,
right? It's proof.
It's exactly what you said. He's not hurt. I mean, that we know of. There's no report of him being hurt or probable or doubtful or any of that. He didn't play. Yeah. And Jamison Crowder, who has basically barely played in the last couple of years because of injuries, is out there in preseason playing. In my opinion, and I don't know, I'm not in the room. I don't have any part of it, but looking at it from where I sit, that's seeing if Jamison Crowder has anything left. That's why he's playing. They're saying Isaiah Mckenzie he's got a spot on this team, and we need him.
And he's got a big role, I think. I think he's going to be pretty close to the full-time slot receiver.
I think it hurts Dawson Knox's value.
I think it does too. I'm a little worried about Knox. Like, he's not going to be that efficient getting all those touchdowns. I think he's fine. Like you said, you could do worse. Like, he's a fine tight end. He could be a top 10 tight end. And maybe, you cut down some of the production. Maybe the touchdowns come down a little bit. You got Isaiah Mckenzie sprinkled in with Crowder. You got Cook catching balls in the backfield. And then you have Gabe Davis taking that step forward. But I am fine with Knox as like a top 10 tight end. I don't know if I'll have too many shares. It kind of like when I get to that point, if I don't have one, I'm really waiting it out like on a Komet or Irv Smith or Njoku or somebody like that. But I think, like you said, you can do worse. All right, the Bills are really good. Like, get as many Bills in your squad as you can. They're going to score a lot of points. They're a really good
25 minutes. Bills are good. Okay, let's go.
Bills are good. There you go. Okay, New England. 25-minute mark, George. Pats. 8.5 is the win total. 5-1 to win the division. 25-1 to win the conference. 51 to win the Super Bowl. 10-1 to, or that was their record last season. Sorry, 10-7. So they did find a way to get into the playoffs, and they got crushed in the playoffs against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And now everybody else is just better, right? The Jets are better. Miami is better. The Broncos are better. The Raiders are better. The Bengals are good. The Ravens are going to be better because of the injuries. It's going to be tough for this team to make the playoffs, but they do have a lot of pieces. Let's look at their pieces. Would you be surprised if I told you that the wide receiver room in New England, the third most expensive wide receiver room in the NFL?
Yeah, I saw
third
that
most expensive.
Yeah,
I think I
put that up on Twitter, and it blew my mind. Then I got looking at it, and the truth is the money aside, I believe this is a very good wide receiver room.
Yes,
Bill Belichick and the Patriots don't care about flash. They don't care. They want receivers that can do 5 or 6 different things. They're not just guys that are going to catch. They're asked to block. They're asked to play special teams. They're asked to do a bunch of different things. And if you can't do those things, then you're not going to play on the New England Patriots. Kendrick Bourne had a sneaky, crazy good season that nobody is talking about. Nobody I've really heard of is talking about how good of a season he had. Devontae Parker has been a guy that I've loved forever. Mac Jones will be by far light years the best quarterback he's ever played with in a system that knows how to score touchdowns. Guys that are good in the red zone, Bill Belichick knows how to use them. He's proven that over the last 10 or 15 years. I really, really love getting Devontae Parker on my team. Jacoby Myers is a reception machine. And I believe he's due for touchdown regression. You can't catch that many balls and score 1 touchdown. It's just improbable. It's improbable. Not to mention the running game. I think everybody's forgetting about how good Damian Harris is. We want the shiny new thing. I love Ramondre Stevenson, and everyone think, oh, he's going to overtake it. That's not how Bill Belichick works. That's not how he works, man. He's got his guys that he trusts, and if he trusts you and you do the right things, you're going to play. Brandon Bolden played on this team for 20 years. He stinks. And he trusted him. Look at Brandon Bolden. It's nothing personal. He's 10 times better athlete than me. He played in the NFL, but he'd be on the field, and you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
What is happening? He'd have 15 carries in a game. Damian Harris, if he's healthy, is the starting running back for this team and is not coming off the field.
And it's funny, Bolden is now in Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels. And I'll tell you what, Raiders fans, you're going to see Bolden on the field. You like Josh Jacobs all you want, Zamir White, Kenyon Drake, you can like those guys all you want, but if the Raiders are down in games and it's on third down, Amir Abdullah too, you'll probably see a little bit of Bolden sprinkled in there because he's very familiar with Josh McDaniels, and obviously McDaniels trusts him. It is weird, right? Jacoby Myers doesn't score touchdowns. Parker does have the ceiling to score touchdowns. Last year, in terms of yards per catch, it was Kendrick Bourne, like 14.8 or right around the 15 mark. He is very underrated. I think he finished as a top 45 wide receiver last year. I think he's a really good pick toward the end of your draft, like in a best ball or something like that. I think he could return value for you. I just found the tweet. Most expensive wide receiver rooms in the NFL. Number 1, New York Giants, 41.7. You can thank Kenny Golladay for that. 0 touchdowns last year and 37 yards per game. Number 2 is Los Angeles Chargers, warranted, right? Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, those are 2 guys. New England Patriots, number 3, 38.7 million. Number 4 is Jacksonville. Thanks to Christian Kirk, 34.3. Tampa Bay is number 5. Makes sense, 31.7. The least, Baltimore, 11.6 million. And then the Colts, 14.9. And that makes sense, too. You got Bateman and nobody, Pittman and nobody. But yeah, interesting to see New England up here. Nelson Aguilar is a guy that they could get cut, who makes a chunk of change, I think like 8 to 10 million.
You still like him, and I know it's very early, but he's still listed as the number 1 receiver in the depth chart. So
they got a lot of moving pieces. I'll be honest, man. I don't think I want any of them. I really don't.
That's been the problem in New England forever. How long has this been the problem? Even when Tom Brady
they had Brady, they didn't give him any weapons. They didn't spend any money on wide receivers. None.
I think.
And then what happens? Brady leaves.
Deion Branch.
Sure, I am. And maybe the Randy Moss too, and Welker and all this. But
you never know where
they
the
didn't
ball's
spend
going to
any
go.
money at wide receivers, though. They really didn't with Brady. They spent on other pieces. Then Brady leaves.
Yeah.
They give all that money to Jonnu Smith. Then the next day they spent a record. Like for Bill Belichick, it was a record. Actually, I think it was an NFL record the first 2 days through free agency. They signed all these pieces. Jonnu, then Hunter Henry. And Hunter Henry, he didn't catch a lot of passes, but he was definitely one of Mac Jones's favorite targets inside the red zone. He was scoring a lot of touchdowns, and he was finishing weekly as a top 10, top 15 tight end because it's all you need in the NFL.
And Jonnu Smith was hurt
to finish
almost all year.
Get a TD. Yeah, I think we could see more from him this year. My biggest question mark that I have with this squad, before we wrap up for them, is like, who the heck is the offensive coordinator? Matt Patricia? Is Matt Patricia going to be the offensive? He's a defensive guy who was a defensive coordinator with New England before. He goes to Detroit and he's a head coach and he's clueless. And now they want him back in New England to be the offensive coordinator on this team and the second-year quarterback. I have some big-time concerns. I feel like there are certainly some weapons for Mac Jones to be successful, but I do believe this is going to be a run-first team. I think you said it with Harris. He's on the last year of his deal. New England's not going to ante up with him. They just don't do that. So
they're going to run him till he breaks.
They're going to run him until he breaks. And there were times last year where he fumbled in key situations, and he still got the benefit of the doubt. There have been multiple times running backs have fumbled, and they just sat on the bench. You never see him again. Remember Gray had 4 rushing touchdowns one year and then for New England, and then he fumbled and then he just never saw playing time again. He's like, see you later. That's it. There were times last year where Harris fumbled the rock inside the 5 and Bill Belichick went back to him. And I know that as an owner, I was a little hesitant and a little upset thinking, oh no, that's it for this guy. I got to drop him. I can never start him again. And they went back to him. One thing that will never happen with him is catching passes though. He can catch, but they just is not going to be the case. You're going to see other guys that get on the field, whether it's Stevenson on third down. James White is gone as well, but I don't think I like anyone, dude, in this offense.
No, I don't.
There's value with Harris.
I think Harris
and
because
Stevenson.
James White retired. Stevenson is he's going to catch a ton of balls, and he'll play as well. And I think someone, maybe in the last round is Jonnu Smith. There's been a ton of publicity coming out saying he's
much better than what we saw.
All over exhibition, all over OTAs, all over training camp, catching every ball thrown to him. He's healthy. And the big thing is Bill Belichick believes in this guy and paid all that money. Jonnu Smith is an unbelievable athlete and an unbelievable football player that can line up all over the place. Bill Belichick is going to find a way to get the ball in his hand. And Jonnu Smith is really good after the catch. Hunter Henry is a great red zone guy, but he's not doing jack after the catch. Jonnu Smith is an athlete. You could draft him after he doesn't do anything the first week, drop him and get somebody else. Right now, Jonnu Smith is going undrafted.
Yeah, he is. And he is a freak. I agree. After the catch, he's fantastic. He is much better than what we saw last year, right? He had some really nice moments with the Titans. And listen, they spent all this money on him for a reason. So we'll see. As long as he can stay healthy, I think we'll see him be certainly more involved in this offense. Mac Jones, I think, is like your third quarterback in a second quarterback league. I think is fine, but I'm not sure about the ceiling. But I do believe Parker, out of the 3 wide receivers, has the highest ceiling of the bunch. He's the guy who at least scores touchdowns. All right, Miami, Marlins baseball. Miami Dolphins. Here we go. Bats. Yes, George. Bats. Bats for you. There we go. Win total 9. AFC 20-1 to win the conference, to win the division, plus 450. I put wild card in here because I don't think that they're going to win the division. They could maybe, if they get in, it's going to be via wild card, but you could see 3 from the AFC West get in. So it's going to be tough for them. But I really do like their squad. Over the past couple of years, they've spent some draft capital on Jaylen Waddle, who had a really nice season last year with his former quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. And then they spent a bunch of draft capital this past year to get Tyreek Hill, 40-1 to win the Super Bowl and 9-8 record last year. really like a pretty strong season. They were there towards the end, knocking on the door to make the playoffs. They got some weapons defensively. They bolstered the offensive line through the draft over the past couple of years. The questions are surrounding Tua Tagovailoa. That's it. Like, let's transition over to some of their weapons and see, George, where they're going. Tua as quarterback 17, Chase Edmunds, like all the backs that they got. Chase Edmunds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel. They got Myles Gaskin on the squad. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle both finished inside the top 10 in terms of targets last year among wide receivers. Mike Gesicki, some reports that you probably don't want to hear if you're a Gesicki owner in dynasty leagues is that he's going to be blocking more this year, which is really not what you want to hear from a tight end. But let's start with the running backs, man, because there's just, like I said, a lot going on here. They signed Chase Edmunds first. But he only has 4 or 5 games with at least 13 carries on his resume. He's not that type of running back, but he does have like 90 catches over the past couple of seasons with Arizona, so he can play that role really nicely. Mike McDaniel's the offensive coordinator for San Fran last year, spent his whole career with Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, in Houston, in Washington, last year in San Fran. He brings Raheem Mostert over, who clearly he was familiar with as a member of San Fran last year in the past couple of years, and they said they were going to use Mostert the same way. In fact, Mostert tweeted it himself. The reason why he went there is because he's familiar with Mike McDaniel, and they told him you're going to be used the exact same way here as you were used in San Fran. So what does that tell me? Lead running back. First, second down, goal line work. Chase Edmunds got no goal line work, nothing from rushing over the past couple of years in Arizona. And then they bring in Sony Michel, who just crowds it a little bit more. There's a veteran back, not going to catch a ton of passes into the backfield, but could get first down, second down, nose for the end zone, could get goal line as well. What are you doing? Do you like one more than the other, or is it just a complete fade for you?
I think just knowing what we know about the Shanahan offense is good luck deciding which running back is going to get the ball. I think you're right. If Mostert's healthy, he's maybe the fastest guy in the NFL with a football in his hands, right? But he has never completed a season,
right?
Never.
It's kind of
he's
made
always
class,
hurt.
Let's be honest.
He's an unbelievable running back, unbelievable speed, can run the ball outside, is pretty good running it inside too, just because he's so explosive, but he just gets hurt, and I said earlier, I don't think about that, but if there's a guy that plays and it's it's not just knee, it's soft tissue, it's groin, it's hamstring, it's stuff like that, with athletes like that, like once it starts happening, it just happens over and over and over and over. And until he can prove he can stay on the field, I'm not touching him. Chase Edmunds, great athlete, good at catching the ball, exciting player with the ball in his hands, but he doesn't run between the tackles. He's not built to do it. I would say he probably doesn't like to do it. I don't know if anyone likes to do it, but they're just not going to use him that way. Then you got Sony Michel, like you said, and Gaskin, and everyone's forgetting about Salvon Ahmed, who may very well get cut.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Sony Michel gets cut. I don't know. The truth is there's 5 or 6 guys there, and who knows? And you heard rumors, and I mean, they're just rumors, and there may be nothing to it, but they're looking at Kareem Hunt from Cleveland. So good luck. Good luck.
I mean, if Kareem Hunt was on this squad,
He'd be
like
great.
they would forget about Mostert. I would view him as even with Chase Edmunds
He's
on the field,
he's a starting running back for any team.
Yeah, he would be a top 12 running back for me if he was a member of Miami. Like, I would just,
Me too.
I'm sure the organization would forget about Michelle, they'd forget about Mostert and Gaskin, and they would have Chase Edmunds sprinkled in like some third down work there, and he would cut in a little bit to what Kareem Hunt does. But yeah, Kareem Hunt would be a top 12 running back. There's no question. Yeah, man, there's just a lot of moving pieces. Like, I just don't want Chase Edmunds in around that range, and I'm a big Chase Edmunds guy. I was the fool that ranked him as a top 5 running back when Kenyon Drake was hurt. And it was like, okay, here we go. We're going to see Chase Edmunds. And he got 23, 24 carries and did nothing. It actually came against Miami, and he did nothing. He's just not that type of back. And sometimes when you see these running backs fall into those opportunities to be a bell cow, they're just not as efficient. He's good in the role that he has been in over the past couple of years, and I think he takes that role. But for that price, I don't want to – I don't want Edmunds to be my RB2 on a guy that's really not going to get double-digit carries. Like, you're really at that point, you're just hoping for him to catch 7 passes a game and find the end zone. I think he's going to have his moments. But this is a crowded backfield. I don't want anything to do with it. What are you doing with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle? because Waddle
too rich for my blood, man. Like I look at,
both of
I
them.
get Tyreek Hill as a freak. I get he's one of the most talented guys in the NFL. But until Tua proves to me that he can throw the ball down the field, I mean, I'm not spending a first round pick on him. And the biggest concern for me is Jaylen Waddle and him are the same player. I don't know if Jaylen Waddle is as fast with him with the ball in his hands, but he's certainly almost as fast as him. They had almost the same combine 40 time. They're relatively the same age, relatively the same size. I mean, they're almost the identical player. And, again, it's good luck. In real football, these are great problems to have, both at the running back position and the wide receiver position. But for fantasy and for betting and for things like that, it's a dart throw. I mean, you just don't know. And the biggest dart is coming from the hands of Tua. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. I want him to be. I like him, but he hasn't.
I don't know if Miami knows that either.
They don't know it either. He hasn't. That's why they were in on Deshaun Watson, right? Like, I mean, I don't care what you say. There was conversations going on there. And that, to me, if I'm a person that is getting these skill position guys, they could be they could have 10 of the greatest skill position players of all time. If they don't have the quarterback to get it to them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and they wanted tank for Tua, and they wanted this team. There's all these reports that have come out lately. When Brian Flores is a really good coach, by the way, did a great job with this squad. Games where he went toe to toe against, never been fired, and he should have a coaching job. And went toe to toe against his former colleague and Bill Belichick, and had a lot of success against him as well. Should never have been fired. But I'm out on Waddle because I would rather have a Mike Williams, a Cortland Sutton, Allen Robinson, and Marquise Brown. I know Waddle had a lot of work and a lot of targets last year. I just feel like it's going to come down a little bit with the addition of Tyreek Hill. I'm willing to take the shot on Hill just because of his upside and his ceiling, but it's not going to be the same, of course, as Kansas City. It just won't be. And no matter what Tyreek Hill says, Tua does not have a better arm than Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a different offense. It's not going to be as up-tempo. And if it is a lot like San Fran, they're going to run the rock with all of these guys. They're going to get the ball in Tua's and Hill's hands and in Waddle's hands and watch them explode. Take this with a grain of salt. But Tua last year had the best completion percentage in the NFL on balls thrown 20-plus yards. He was 50%. Right. His deep ball, 50%. The problem is he only threw 26 passes of 20 yards down the field. Josh Allen threw 74. Right. Russell Wilson threw 74. So I just want to throw that out there. But also at the same time, he didn't really push the ball down the field that much. No. But the play for me, the game plan for me will be to get the ball to these guys' hands quick, like San Fran. Think about the Yak Monsters in San Fran. Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, get it quick and watch them explode. So I think that will be the case. And both really good wide receivers, to your point. Great problem to have. Real NFL problem. Really good 1-2 punch. Steep price to pay on both. I would have more shares than Tyreek Hill just because of his explosiveness.
Yeah, if I would bet on one, that's who I'd bet on. But week to week, he's either going to give you, 5 and 41 yards or 5 and 141 yards.
And again, the targets are not going to be – he's only going to throw, on average last year, 22, 23 times a game. Like, he probably lives maybe in the mid-20s, late 20s, but it's not going to be like Mahomes 40-plus times. Like, that offense is not going to run this way. And I think there's going to be times this year where Tyreek Hill's on the sidelines and he is frustrated as hell because he's not getting the ball as much. He was frustrated last year in Kansas City. Exactly. Yeah, so there's going to be times where he's frustrated this year. We're going to shortchange the Jets. We only have a couple minutes here, but let's talk about them anyways. Some big news over the weekend with Zach Wilson, of course. We're waiting word on if it's a significant knee injury, but he is going to miss some time. There's some reports that it's just a bone bruise and not a torn ACL, so I guess that's good news. Win total 5.5, 22-1 to win the AFC East, 85-1 to win the division, or win the conference, rather, 151 to win the Super Bowl. You saw they only rattled 4 wins off last year. I think they're under. If I'm picking totals, I'm picking unders for the most part anyways, but I don't think that this is a team that wins 6 games. Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, let's transition to some of their weapons. They've had a really nice couple years drafting, right? Sauce Gardner is going to be a lockdown corner in the NFL. They've addressed the offensive line over the past couple years. Wilson, Hall, Carter, Moore, Wilson. These guys are all draft picks for them over the past couple seasons. And Garrett Wilson was my favorite wide receiver coming out of the draft. I really like him. But they also have Corey Davis and they brought in CJ Uzomah. So they have a lot of moving pieces. Like Michael Carter as well, but you kind of have to pour one out when they draft Breece Hall as early as they did. I don't know if he's going to be a full-on bell cow back, but I can't see Carter stealing too many first and second down opportunities from Breece Hall, and Hall is going to be able to he can certainly catch some balls out of the backfield. So Carter's a fade for me. I like Elijah Moore, but the gap between Moore and Wilson, I think, is maybe a little bit too significant. I don't think there's like
way too significant.
I don't think it's like, we've seen Moore. He knows the
I'm
playbook,
taking Elijah Moore before Wilson in every draft I'm in, and people. That
me too, but would you be shocked though if these guys finish like much closer than 20 wide receiver slots? I wouldn't be shocked if Wilson had I'd like Moore long term. I like Wilson, but I think it's going to be closer than ADP suggests.
Yeah, for me in fantasy, I don't like to draft rookies. Running back is the only position that I trust because there's not a lot to think about. It's just find the hole and run this way. Wide receivers is a much more difficult position. We know that tight end definitely is. Usually it takes them 2 or 3 years to become, actual solidified starters. I get that he's a great player. I think he's going to be a great player. I really liked him coming out, but the reality is I think everybody is sleeping on Elijah Moore. I think he is going to be an absolutely stud receiver. And everyone's forgetting Corey Davis was drafted in the first round. This guy, they're paying him a ton of money. Good. He's a very good player. When he's healthy and he's right, he's a very, very good player. He's going to start. I think Moore is going to be on the other side. I think Michael Carter is going to spell Breece Hall. I think you're going to see a 50-50 split, and I think they're going to throw the ball a lot this year. So that's how I look at this setup. I think if you're drafting Wilson before Elijah Moore, you're insane.
No, I don't think that should be the case. I just feel like the gap should be as large.
That is the case. It's happening all
Moore should go ahead. Yeah, Moore should go ahead of Wilson. I just feel like I wouldn't be shocked if these guys finish like kind of side by side, where one guy's going as wide receiver 30 and the other guy's going.
That's going to depend on Corey Davis and his health, I think. If Corey Davis is healthy, he's going to play.
He is. Okay, just as we wrap up, a shout out to Sam Schudery. He used split tools, Jets with Wilson. Moore, it was just a couple games. So, he missed 4 games. He was wide receiver 84. He averaged 28 yards per game. Without him, he averaged 84 yards per game, and he was a top 12 wide receiver. So just because Wilson is gone doesn't mean it's the end of the world for Elijah Moore, right? It doesn't. Whether it's Mike White or
he's the real deal.
I don't know, whoever the heck it is,
he's the real
Joe
deal.
Flacco. He's good. He's going to be involved end arounds in the slot, can also line up wide. He's going to be involved in this offense. And I'll just say both of these guys are going to fall down draft boards now because Zach Wilson's not going to be with the squad for a bit. Zach Wilson wasn't all that great in his rookie season. So it's not the end of the world. Mike White is not a terrific quarterback, but he will pepper his targets. I think both guys are really strong buy low candidates in Dynasty, if that makes any sense as well. But this is a team that's going to struggle, and they're going to struggle significantly. And I don't mind Breece Hall as we get out of here. I think he's okay. As like your RB2, I think he's fine. You could do worse. Yep. EY, George, all you guys hanging out with us, we appreciate you at Game Plus Network as well. We'll be back on Thursday. Have a good one. Cheers.